Friends, now that COVID-19 is almost behind us, this Saturday, let's look back and see what COVID-19 has done to us and what we need to do in order to truly leave it behind. Akrasia, first coined by Socrates, the Greek philosopher, is to procrastinate, and its antonym is Enkrateia, which means being proactive and being in control of oneself. Incidentally, Enkrateia was coined by Aristotle. Which of these two we want to follow would be our choice and would set goals for us in the future. COVID-19 has brought about some profound changes in every one of us and in every one of our lives. For one, it has made us think about the past, the present, and the future. What would happen in future? How would things pan out? Would life be better or would it be worse? Would we go back to a life we were used to, or there really is a new normal that we all must adapt to? Where are we and where would we want to be? And so on. These are the questions on everyone's mind. Thinking out an event doesn't necessarily give a solution or the means to find one, but it gives us a few pointers. So we must think. There must be a will to differentiate between the immediate and the long term to make a difference to oneself and to others. However, we are all so enamored by instant gratification that we seldom plan for the long term. We attach so much of importance to only the immediate, which we expect to deliver instantly. Is it not the ability to delay or defer gratification which would predict success in our lives? Admittedly, the pandemic has stressed our lives, disrupted our economic fortunes, and displaced our social life also. It has forced us to change our priorities, so much so that some of us even went under psychological shock and acted against our own better judgment and will. Should we let this Akrasia effect take a toll on us? Should we procrastinate in everything that we do from here on? If even occasionally we can resist the pull of instant gratification, we could probably bridge the gap between where we are and where we want to be. There is a video here which will explain what must one do to overcome procrastination. Let's watch it.
Procrastination, which is when you put off tasks that you should be focusing on, can stop even the most promising career in its tracks. It can diminish the quality of your work, lead you to miss deadlines, cause others to avoid working with you, and can even damage your reputation. The good news is there's a lot you can do to overcome this bad habit. First, it's important to recognize when you're procrastinating. Most people know when they're putting things off, but there are several signs you can watch out for. For instance, you might spend a lot of your time working on low priority tasks from your to-do list. Perhaps you sit down to work on a high priority project and then immediately take a coffee break. Or maybe you wait around to be in the right mood to get started on something. Everyone's different, so pay attention to when you put off a task or project. The next step is to think about why you're procrastinating. Are you overwhelmed by the task? Are you disorganized and just don't want to get started? Or are you a perfectionist and don't think you have enough knowledge or skills to begin? Once you understand why you're procrastinating, come up with some strategies to overcome it. For instance, If you're not motivated to get started, think about all of the unpleasant consequences of not completing this task. If you're procrastinating because of disorganization, take time to prioritize your to-do list and then focus on one task at a time. Or if you're procrastinating because of perfectionism, ask yourself how perfect the work actually has to be. And don't forget to reward yourself. For example, have a gourmet coffee once you've completed a task that you've been putting off. Not only is this motivational, but you'll realize how good it feels when you actually finish things. Remember, it can take a while to overcome a bad habit and establish a new routine, so don't give up.
In trying to overcome effect of Akrasia, what we actually manage to do is to neither here nor there. Is to be neither here nor there. We simply procrastinate. However, we should remember what Alexander Graham Bell, a Scottish-born inventor, scientist and engineer, credited with patenting the first practical telephone, said. The only difference between success and failure is the ability to take action. Now, if you don't take action, we keep procrastinating, what would happen? Is it behavioral economics at play? Are we really worried about the effects of psychological, cognitive, emotional, cultural, and social factors on our decisions? Or is it time inconsistency that's ruling us? Are we worried that it can change our preferences over a period of time in such a way that our preferences become inconsistent at another point of time? Does Akrasia and procrastination then set in the system? Does this time inconsistency make us value immediate rewards more than the future rewards? How then should our lives shape up post-COVID? When we make plans for ourselves, like setting a goal to lose weight or visit a friend from whom we have not met for years, or write a book or learn a foreign language, we are making plans for the future and thinking about what we want to be in future. And the brain sees a value in those long-term benefits. However, when the time comes to make a decision, we no longer make choices for our future, since we are in the moment, in the present moment, and start thinking only about the present. Research in human psychology says the self really likes instant gratification, not long-term payoff. We might go to bed feeling motivated to make a change in our lives, but when we wake up, we find ourselves falling back to old patterns or old way of doing things. Some profound words that Dale Carnegie, an American writer, wrote, which reads as, "One of the most tragic things I know about human nature is that all of us tend to put off living. We are all dreaming of some magical rose garden over the horizon instead of enjoying the roses blooming outside our windows today. So how can we beat Akrasia and live better post-COVID? Can we lock our future thinking and behavior? Can we mold it? Can we redesign our future actions? Can we figure out what our commitment device should be? Psychologists define it, the commitment device, as a choice we make in the present that controls our future actions. Can we in some way eschew our bad practices and create new ones that will help us tide over the COVID crisis? Staying at home, COVID has forced some lifestyle changes in us. For example, some of us may have gained weight through largely forced sedentary habits. We could reduce overeating by cooking less than what we need, maybe purchase food in individual packets, smaller packets rather than in bulk. The extra time that we have may have even forced some of us to surf the internet, surf the casinos and online poker sites. We could voluntarily ask to be added to the banned list of such sites. The circumstances may differ, but the message is the same. Our commitment devices must help us design our future actions. We must find ways to automate our behavior beforehand rather than rely on our willpower. We must be the architect of our future actions, not the victim of them. Nothing happens just like that. We have to plan and work towards the plan. It's always difficult to get started when we want to change the habits. It's important to build the habit of getting started when we are beginning a new behavior than to worry about whether or not we would be successful. If we want to overcome the ill effects of post-COVID, we must reduce the friction of starting. According to researchers at Duke University, habits account for 40% of our behaviors on any given day. Understanding how to build new habits and how our current ones work is essential for making progress in our health, our happiness, and in our lives. So we must start with an incredibly small habit and build on it as we go along. Build piece by piece. If we slip, getting back on track is equally important. Every one of us must be patient and stick to a pace we can sustain. Above all, we must have an implementation plan, intention, which means we must state our intention to implement a particular behavior at a specific time. For example, let me exercise for at least 30 minutes every day when I get up, so at so and so time, at so and so place, and so on. We are fortunate to be living in a country that has its own COVID-19 vaccination. Not one, but two of them. What is, however, not so palatable is the pace at which people have opted for it. Suppose we plan the booster event and write down the specific date and time to get the booster COVID jab. There would be significantly more numbers following up through the coming weeks. Scheduling things ahead of time can make a difference. Aristotle coined the term Enkrateia as the antonym of Akrasia. While Akrasia refers to our tendency to fall victim to procrastination, Enkrateia means to be in power over oneself. Designing future actions based on best practices, reducing the friction in starting good behaviors, and using implementation intentions are all simple steps that we can take to live a meaningful life, a life of Enkrateia rather than that of Akrasia. Let's see video here that explains how to lead a life of Enkrateia or to have self-control.
Everyone has the strength of self-control inside them. And it is important that we practice self-control every day. This is the moment you slow down like a sloth. Stop and freeze in place to control your actions. The more you stop and freeze, the more your self-control muscle grows and gets stronger. Let's practice together and try to control like crazy. Start with your feet. Stomp them up and down in your seat. Freeze! Now, wave your arms high and wild. Freeze! Now let's slow our body down and slowly move your hands or feet. How slow can you go? Now freeze! Was it easier to freeze that time? Sometimes when we take a minute to slow down, it can be easier to stop. Let's control like crazy in our class and in our home so we can build our self-control muscle and think before we act. Remember, you are always in charge of your body and mind. Strengths can be practiced anytime.
Friends, I have come to the end of today's episode. But before going, and promising to be back the next Saturday with another episode of my Saturday Wisdom, I would like to remember what Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th President of the United States of America, had said. In a moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing to do. The next best is the wrong thing to do. And the worst thing is doing nothing. Till I see you again the next Saturday. Thank you, Dhanyavad and Namaskar.